(1,250 horsepower). That part you already know. 5.5-liter twin turbocharged LT7 V8 from the ZR1, you also know that. Shoehorning the same EV all-wheel drive system from a C8 E-Ray underneath a radiator the size of Texas, that brings us to the old saying about assumptions. They're kind of like windows onto the world where every once in a while you got to do some scrubbing so you can let the light back in. Today, you and I need to do some scrubbing. Let's kick things off today with the opposite of what everyone knows about this thing. 4,128 pounds, or depending on how you express your weights and measures, 1,872 kilograms. That is 280 pounds more than the rear-wheel drive ZR1, 100 pounds more than a C8 E-Ray. Now that we have the sort of bad news out of the way, I feel it prudent that this being the most powerful car by a lot, we've taken to our rather technical test road here, Santa Maria Madre de Dios. With that, Zora mode. Oh my God. Oh my God. This is an all-wheel drive vehicle that, okay, it's doing this dance back and forth with the computers trying to launch the car properly, and it still broke traction in the rear. That's the beauty of like the mad scientists that have created this thing. They programmed that in, and then, oh, the sound. Well, that's really no different, than the ZR1. There's a whole bunch of lunacy to this whole thing. Like, for example, the top speed of this thing doesn't come in 8th gear, it comes in 6th gear, but to get to that, you gotta be on a closed circuit, and then it releases an extra 100 RPM. It's that kind of foolishness that make me love it. But then, there is a significant problem with this. It is far too easy to drive way too fast. And there's a couple of ways, oh my God. And there's a couple of ways you can do that. Like, for example, I got somewhat of a straight here. There's this charge plus button. I hit that, just switch it on to come around here and just drop the oh my God. I can feel a little bit more pull from the, God, this is magnificent. I can feel a bit more pull from the front. It's temporary. Think of it as like an overboost button. There's 3 modes to it, depending on what you're trying to get out of it. Like, it has this algorithm to do this, optimize around a track, or do what we just did where it's most boost, or something that's more endurance to kind of keep the battery going longer, at least provide more energy. Put aside all the science experiment, this, in terms of the way it delivers power, there is a difference between this and the ZR1. You don't feel so much the pulling, you just feel more, I guess, as a confidence in the way it accelerates, which is very different than any Corvette that came before it. And here's the real shocker, any of its competitors with the same equation. So I'm going to go ahead and say the quiet part out loud. This probably the worst kept secret in the automotive world, not just the existence of it, but also its naming. I'll let you guys argue about that in the comments below. And then falling under the same heading, how is this different than it being the love child of a ZR1 and a C8 E-Ray? And there I got my answer from a conversation with the Chevrolet engineers. Apparently, it's the same but different. All the hardware, the battery, the electric motor, all that's the same from the E-Ray. However, what they did was, we need a different use case. So they changed the software on the battery to get more energy out of the battery. It's like 30% more energy, just a little bit underneath that. And then they get 16% more horsepower out of the electric motor.
But you can't make all these changes without changing some of the hardware, so they did change the structure of the electric motor as well as the shafts. And the idea was, let's have the electric motor do more work so it pairs better with double the horsepower coming from the rear out of an E-Ray. So what they do is the disconnect, basically where it hands back over to the gas engine, that now goes from 150 miles an hour to 160 miles an hour. But that, it's only 1/3 the equation. This being both a performance car and a hybrid, the brakes, they play a pivotal role. Say that fast 3 times. Yes, of course, they're made of Frankenstein's Merc carbon fiber, and they are bigger than the brakes on the ZR1. But really what's going on, same as the front, the use case. And there, the engineers were like, what's the enemy of braking performance? And that would be heat. So when you get hot brakes, even on a 2,000-pound Elise, you have brake fade. So what they've done here is changed a couple of small bits to keep the brakes as cool as possible in a 4,000-pound car with this kind of output. So they changed the thickness of the pads as well as like optimize the pressure. But then we get back again to the use case. What are we doing with the energy that we've reclaimed from all 4 corners of the car and put back into a very small battery? They're another use case. They've come up with this like reserve. If you think about this kind of a car going around a track, you've got going around a corner and basically keeping you from stuffing it. And then there's straightaways where it acts like boost almost. So what they've programmed the system to do is to prioritize that reserve for going around corners over using it for boost on a straight. So putting it all together, we've gone from UR Quattros of the past to now this highly choreographed, synchronized dance between disparate outputs front and rear, which make this not so much a performance hybrid, rather predictive algorithms on 4 wheels.
Okay, so let's you and I put aside all the technobabble and answer the key question. Does this hocus pocus work? Short answer is a resounding yes. But there are different levels to that answer, and it's all about programming this thing. Because effectively driving this is like driving an intercontinental ballistic missile. You can change the Charge Plus that we talked about already. You can go to the performance traction management and make this a much more analog experience and probably kill yourself in the process. So if one is thinking this is like a GTR that came from Kentucky, no, it's more natural feeling than that. Yes, it's got the all-wheel drive system, but it's not intrusive. It works. There are times I feel it pulls, but there's also times that I feel it saves my ass. Granted, we're on a very technical road here. I've been pushing it for the better part of an hour, and I'm still feeling, maybe not peak performance, and I am getting the squeal, that Porsche squeal to it. Came up about a half an hour into this whole shoot. I don't think they've accomplished the whole noise goal. Basically, they wanted to reduce the noise of the brakes. But in terms of performance and usability over extended cases, they definitely hit the target. Probably a better tool on a track, which at some point you and I have the opportunity to do. I'd love to try the one with the ZTK package, because something tells me the setup of that car would rattle your intestines, and there's something oddly inviting about that.
And so we arrive at a question I never thought I'd have to ask in this lifetime. What is the cost of predictive algorithms on 4 wheels? And there, one would think because it's bleeding edge technology, it would be expensive, but follow me for a couple minutes here. The base price, $209,595. If you want this to be a convertible, that's an additional $10,000. However, what you are looking at is not the basic car. This is the 3LZ, which has more fancy bits on it. Biggest difference is seats, Bose stereo. That's an additional $9,000. Then we get to the first option, which frankly should not be optional on a $210,000 car, and that would be the front axle lift, $2,595. Then there's that color. The ZR1 we had, it was orange. It was kind of like driving around with your hair on fire like Lamborghini people. That was $695. This, the red mist metallic Santa Maria Madre, it is stunning to look at. It is a little bit more, but worth it, $995. Then, I wouldn't classify this as in terms of beauty. I would classify this as functionality. The carbon fiber wheels, unsprung mass. Is it worth $13,995? That's something we have to put a pin in that part of the discussion, take the car on the track and try to understand it. Hopefully we can get the car again and a track. While we're here, the brake calipers. You can have these painted. We did it on the ZR1 we had. This is $695. You can pick from a bunch of different colors. Good personalization options here. And then, speaking about this whole driving around with your hair on fire thing, apparently they have a package for that. It's called the carbon fiber package. Things like the flakes here, the gurney flap, and the wing, because of course, you can't miss the wing. Now, I famously am not a wing guy, but I get it here because it's very functional. 1,200 pounds of downforce, which does not come cheaply, $10,495. Now, there's another package this car does not have. It's got a terrible name, ZTK. Basically, it changes the suspension setup and the tires, Cup 2Rs. I'm guessing that makes the car less usable around town. I gotta try that thing. That's an additional like $1,500 bucks, the cheapest option I could think of. Then the federal government, apparently they need to have a word with you because you bought a hybrid that is not fuel efficient, therefore you must be punished to the tune of $2,600. But good news, that's $400 cheaper than the ZR1 without the electrification in the front. But enough with the good news, let's press on to the bad news. I wasn't aware of this, but transporting this car, which has the EV system in the front, costs more from Kentucky than the ZR1. This is $2,495 in destination handling. That's $500 more than the ZR1. I don't understand why. Which brings us to the total retail price of $251,370. Now, while you are picking yourself up off the floor, contemplating a $250,000 Chevy, let's talk about two things. Number one, resale. Really can't talk about resale because this is the first ever, like, crazy, ridiculous, predictive algorithm at 1,250 horsepower, so we'll put a pin in that discussion, come back to it. However, comparisons. Now, it's a Corvette, so of course you know it's going to be less than the competition, but the numbers, when you look at the horsepower and the money, it's so ridiculous, unlike any other Corvette, Porsche, Ferrari comparison in the past. Like, for example, you compare this to the closest Porsche, which I would say would be the Turbo S. You have to go down over 500 horsepower and still come up with 50 grand more to get even close. In the Ferrari world, it's even more ridiculous. To get a similar car, we're not talking about 296s that are 400 grand. To get a similar car, you'd still have to go down over 200 horsepower and double the fully optioned price of this. So put another way, predictive algorithms, they're kind of on a discount rack.
Putting this all together, I can't get this analogy out of my head. Are you guys skiers? Like, specifically American Rocky skiers, the legendary back bulls of Vail. That's kind of what I'm feeling here. I'm feeling I'm spending the entire day in the back bulls. I don't forget about lunch. I'm just focusing. All my friend's girlfriend, she's back at the lodge. And it's that kind of experience, that kind of like one with the vehicle, one with the skis. But then there's that time at the end of the day, you might be tired, you're not paying attention, and you catch an edge and it goes bad for you. I'm still at like 1, 2 o'clock in the ski day here. Something tells me with the right combination of all the PTM and the Charge Plus and all the different settings, you could probably catch an edge kind of like that. So I think the challenge here is avoid catching the edge. Now, I'm not saying this to you because I want to be the reincarnation of Minister Rogers on 4 wheels. Rather, I'm telling you this because this is a car that is crying out for driver training. This is the kind of vehicle where I highly suggest you go see the fantastic Ron Fellows. He's a guest on our podcast and a fantastic driver who will teach you car control for vehicles like this, which I don't feel are optional. Anyway, I'm gonna get off my soapbox because this, I think I need some alone time.
Now that we got the scrubbing out of the way and we see the light coming through the window again, a life lesson. This, not a revolution, rather a long time in coming evolution. You and I, we could argue about where that evolution started. I would say C6 Z06, and then the economy fell off a cliff, so they had to make the C7, but they did move the engine back just a little bit, which changed that car dynamically. Then they put some money back in the bank, and they moved the engine to the right place. But more importantly, that gave us the platform that this works with, which is that aluminum tub. And then came the LT6, and then the insanity of the LT7 and the ZR1, which brings us to this, the rarefied air of being completely ridiculous. Which brings us to this. Does it work? Short answer, yes, but not for the reasons that you're thinking. Most would look at this and say, oh my God, it's all about what's on the page. No, it's not about the numbers. This is about, there's no way to put this, the fucking moonshot this is. And not just for the automotive world. This is a signpost to all of American ingenuity and American industry in the era of quarter-to-quarter results, that when you can find a wormhole in a large company that has a budget, you can make shit like this. And that should be the goal of every for-profit concern in the good old US of A. So to the engineers in Warren and Milford, God, I mean, you're crazy, but God bless you, and God bless the good old US of A. Shall I see you in the next episode? Bis später.